Over the last 5 to 8 years, I've taken a bit of an interest in politics. During that time, my country has gone through quite a lot of austerity. Now, back when it was first introduced, I actually supported it. Even though I myself at the time was unemployed, I knew that the country could not continue with the quantitative easing, or the, quotes, investing of Gordon Brown, who in his infinite wisdom sold off our gold stocks for a fraction of what they were worth. Genius. Now the Labour Party is led by a self-professed socialist, whose chancellor, or shadow chancellor, is a communist, both of whom want to spend excessively under the guise of it being investments. Now, over the 8 years I've been involved in politics, I've also noticed one party taking it upon themselves to preach the tolerance that they claim to be, all the while being absolute hypocrites, or, to make it simpler for you, being the very problem they claim to fight against, whether it be anti-Semitism within their own ranks, i.e. Naz Shah, or those parties that we've all heard about. So tolerant, right? Much progressivism occurs at these parties. The blatant racism towards white members, whether it be Diane Abbott solely focusing on black people, and whenever you criticize her you're racist, because she can't count, or the sexism that takes place when excluding guys, which we've heard many times over the years I've been on YouTube especially, excluding straight white men from events because they are straight and white and male, to supposedly claim to be progressive and inclusive, and I've heard it on many occasions in Prime Minister's questions, and I'm hoping, during one of my streams I do on the Cthulhu-Kin and Friends show, when I respond to Prime Minister's questions, I'm waiting for that moment that Jeremy Corbyn talks about tolerance and acceptance, because when he does I'm going to flay him for it. His party is anything but. His party is supposed to be Labour, the workforce. You're supposed to be the workforce's representatives. Their core values are supposed to be yours, whereas they're not, are they? Yours are for anyone but the very people you want to vote for you. I saw this rather delightful video you did on Twitter, and I'm going to play it now.
Here in Midlothian, a former proud mining area, you can see how the Tories and the SNP are failing the people of Scotland. After the closure of the pits here, like so many other communities across the UK, there hasn't been the investment needed. Imposed by the Tories in Westminster and assisted by the SNP in Holyrood, 8 years of austerity has led to falling wages and a faltering economy. More austerity won't get the economy moving. Only investment will. And it's only Labour that will invest in people, communities, and industry and jobs. That's what's needed in places like Midlothian.
Not all of that is actually correct, but that's for another time, as today I want to focus on another one of those rather interesting instances where Labour have banned a group of people from attending something. So, Labour bans straight white men at conference. Labour is facing an inquiry from a watchdog after barring straight white men from an equalities conference. Those attending the Young Labour conference in March must self-define, hey white guys, there's your in, as one of Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic, or BAME, a woman, disabled and lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans. You left out kink. I've heard this is a new thing now. Technically, everyone has a kink. Look at me. Misa. Come on, just admit it. A Conservative MP has referred the event to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, and rightly so, and the reason why is going to come up in the next sentence. Labour said there was no point in straight white men attending because the conference's aim was to elect equalities representatives. When my lovely patron Skog sent this to me, he and I were actually in a voice chat on Discord, and while playing 7 Days to Die together, he couldn't stop laughing. And it was this reason why. The irony. Can you not, do you Labour, and I apologise for the Discord alert, do you Labour not understand that by discriminating against a group for the post of equalities representative, or representatives, there are more than one position I assume, you are denying them their voice. You are going with minorities and ignoring the majority. Somehow their voice isn't worth as much to you, which is why you are unelectable. It's one of the many reasons you're unelectable. Your commie policies, socialist policies, also make you unelectable. Quite frankly, this is an insult, and it is discrimination. The issue comes weeks after the Commission said that Labour was guilty of unlawful discrimination for offering BAME members discounted tickets to its East Midlands Regional Conference. My good friend Irate Bearfag,
I'm an alt-right furry,
did a fantastic video talking about this, and I will link it in the description. Quite frankly, the fact that they charged black people less than white people, I believe, was hilarious. If any white people went, I hope they asked to be separated from the black people, because if you're going to charge more for their seats, they probably want front row, and because segregation's hilarious. And also something I believe the Labour Party support. James Cleverly, the Conservative Party's new deputy chairman, accused Labour of yet another example of discrimination. The list of discrimination, or list of things Labour have been involved in that are quite clearly examples of discrimination, is quite long. He said their lazy assumption that straight white men can't fight for equality is shocking. Exactly. It's also denying them their voice. It's like saying, you know what, on the behalf of white men, only a trans black lesbian can speak on your behalf. Now, as hilarious as all that is, I want to make something quite clear. My view on race has always been consistent. I do not care about race. I do not care if it is real to you or not. I do not care if it is real at all. I don't care what the race of someone is. I will treat you equally. Okay, I'll treat my friends better, but seriously. If you make issues about race, if you want to devolve discussions down to the very basic arguments about race, I take issue. And this is exactly it. You have predetermined that someone of white skin, because they are heterosexual and white and male, their voice, their opinion, their mind, means nothing to you. You're looking for aesthetics. One of my favourite comments in this article called you champagne socialists. And honestly, I think it sums up this Labour Party perfect. It is essential that political parties represent each and every person irrespective of race, sexuality or age. A thought, a view, a perception that everyone should have. Andrew Bridgen, by the way, if in Premister's questions tomorrow this comes up, I'm going to laugh. And I will be streaming my response to that on Thursday, 9:30 GMT PM. Yes. Andrew Bridgen, the Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire, who referred Labour to the Equalities Watchdog, said, Labour are a divisive party who want to divide people into victim groups. There is another name for this. It's called the Oppression Olympics. Quite frankly, the fact it still exists is a freaking joke. The Labour Party are no longer about equality or fighting against discrimination. They have been entirely taken over by identity politics and specific groups of activists, which is why it is so hard to defend them. Even if I agree with certain policies, it's very hard to support them, because they are such a vindictive party now. They are not a party of the people. I know they had the slogan for the many, not the few, but don't you think you're aiming that at the wrong people then, when you're only supporting ethnic minorities and other really small groups of people, you know, the victims of non-existent oppression? Now, in defense of this, a Labour Party spokeswoman said, there is nothing new about spaces for people with protected characteristics meeting to discuss the inequalities and obstacles they face. Why exclude straight white men then? You yourselves should then create a separate meeting solely for them, to discuss the fact they were excluded from this. Or you deny those very men their own agency, their own voice, or you have decided that they and their experiences mean nothing because they're straight, white and male. Must be that Trey Melvin quote. A homeless white man has more power in his skin than I will ever have. Spoken by a mixed-race millionaire with the bluest eyes and the gayest ass I've ever seen. The purpose of this conference is to ensure that members from disadvantaged groups are able to elect representatives to Young Labour's National Committee. We should talk about that homeless rate sometime, shouldn't we? Dear Labour Party, and this is directly to you, Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, Keir Starmer, whatever your fucking name is, Diane Abbott, Emily Thornberry, and every other one of you idiots. Your party is a joke. We have the weakest Prime Minister in a long time, since Gordon Brown I might argue, and you can't beat her. If she's out after Brexit, you'll have to go up against someone far stronger. Can you imagine you guys trying to debate Mog? I'm not saying Mog will win, but honestly, you better hope that Gove takes over. But even then, you will have such a minority government you won't be able to enact a single policy. Your policies are reckless. You hide it under the guise of investment. But what's the use of investing in privately owned services if you won't put the money into it to restore it or improve it? You simply buy it back, which costs hundreds of billions. And where do you get it from? By stealing properties from people who own them, by taxing the rich to the point where they leave the country, by doing exactly what Tony Blair and Gordon Brown did in 13 years, and tank our economy. You reckless, reckless fools. And I know you didn't answer me, Jeremy, when I sent you that tweet, but I didn't expect you to, because you're a coward. Anyway, this has been jolly good fun today. If you are interested in watching me on the Cthulhu-Kin and Friends show, I will leave a link to it in the description. It is on Thursday, 9:30 PM GMT. Please feel free to join me while I talk about Prime Minister's questions. I typically focus on the 6 questions asked by the opposition and the 2 questions from the SNP, if I have time. And if any other question, 1 or 2, really stand out, yeah, I'll focus on those. So anyway, I hope you all have a lovely day, and thank you all for listening to me drivel on for however long this has been.